How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another installment of Tech Support Thursday. I wanted to take a few minutes and go over the comments that were left recently. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. And then I'll swing over and we'll talk about the new workbook and then what I'm working on currently, just so everybody's on the same page. So some older content back when I was studying for the security CCIE. This is actually going back quite a ways. So I go over that. So the workbook has been the main point of comment and stuff like that. So if anybody's interested in the workbook, there will be a link in the description. It is price pointed right now at $100 and will be for a little while. I am kicking around the idea about doing a bundle where I give I bundle both the Entrprise and the Service Provider workbook together and all of the downloadables that come with it, and for basically a Christmas special. So let me know in the comment section below if that's something you guys would like or interested in and stuff like that. I can put that together. So that is that. So those are the questions that were here. It was pretty light for the past couple of weeks, but I've been pretty busy for a lot of that with the workbook. Now the workbook has been out for almost a week. I think I've got, what is it? I think I've had 5 people buy it. So for those of you that have bought the workbook, I do appreciate the support and stuff like that. I have pivoted over now to diving into the CCIE service provider preparation. So right now I am working towards going through Nick Russo's book and covering the areas that I don't know as well. I was wrapping up MPLS traffic engineering, some stuff that I haven't touched. I'm going to check that box probably within the next day or two. I'll be able to get through the last of those labs. And what I'm planning on doing on each section of the workbook for CCIE service provider is going to be finish a section in the workbook, and then I'm going to immediately take that same topology and I'm going to rebuild it in one of my the other Eve server that I've got, and then I will go ahead and bang out the videos, and then I will also write all the tasks for all those labs that are in there, so it'll be done in chunks. And my goal right now is to use one intra-AS topology for everything that's intra-AS. So if it's MPLS focused, it'll be one topology. So you won't see multiple like you did in CCNP service provider. So the intention there is to systematically go through it and layer the different technologies on top of each other. So like right now, layer 3 VPN is stood up, and I've been going through MPLS traffic engineering. But I also did spend a significant amount of time on multicast VPN right before that. So I was actually starting to write CCIE service provider while I was still doing CCNP service provider. And I was talking with a friend of mine, and he goes, dude, I would just finish the one and then focus your time and effort on the thing that you really want to do so you can check that box, as you say. And I was like, good point. So I do take feedback seriously from you guys. Hence, this is why I have a channel. So that's what I did. And the CCIE workbook right now is sitting around 500 pages. And it's basically taking Nick Russo's book, and I'm taking a lot of the information that he put in there. It's kind of a summarization of the actual documentation. So I've been reading his book, reading the documentation for any like backfill that I need to know about how something works. And then I've been configuring the tasks and all that type of stuff. Sorry, the labs themselves, I'll go circle back and do all the tasks at a later point in time, and then go from there. So that is what I'm doing now, and I'm planning on having one topology for intra-AS, and then I'll have a couple other topologies for doing the other things like segment routing, SRv6, so on and so forth. But I wanted to round out the last few tasks that I wanted to do for certain stuff, just so I can check the box and move on to other things. Because it's going to be a layering effect, because that's how service providers are built, right? You have your underlay, right? You have the layer 3 VPN service, that customers can subscribe to, and then on top of that, you can run multiple services on top of it. So the idea is to layer those services over time, and it's like, okay, once the deployment is fully in place, and we've got layer 3 VPN, we've got traffic engineering rolled out, and then we're also going to implement layer 2 and layer 2 VPN and multicast VPN, QoS, have all that working at the same time. And then if there's any technicalities for it, like for example with multicast VPN and you're doing traffic engineering, you have to throw in multicast intact, for example, so that it knows where the traffic is supposed to go in the TE tunnel. So stuff like that I'm going to be adding in. And I'm going to be using a single topology, and I'll have both OSPF and ISIS dually configured. And if I need to test something in ISIS, I will adjust the administrative distance to be better than OSPF. And if I need to test something in OSPF, I just remove the ISIS AD configuration and make OSPF better, because OSPF has a better AD out of the gate. So it allows me to move the IGP up and down based off of the needs of the network and go from there. So I'd like to have a lot of that done by the first of the year, have intra-AS kind of knocked out, and then move on, because now I'm starting to pick up my pace, right? I've got a baseline from NP, and now I can kick it into like second, third, fourth gear, and I don't need to sit there and go, how does that work? Sometimes it's a refresher. Now, I work for a service provider, and I was just talking to a customer the other day about some stuff when it comes to connecting their existing edge routers to the service provider backbone that I work for. So what I'm planning on doing, and I'll kind of just recap this real quick with you guys, the Nick Russo book is going to be the bulk of the SP technologies. I'm planning on going through a lot of his content, not everything, but a lot of it. And then for the SPB5 stuff that I'm trying to do, I'm going to be switching over to Andrew Ohanian's workbook, taking his labs, or the spirit of the labs and the information he includes in them, and building out the segment routing section and the stuff that he covers with that. Those are the areas. And then the last thing that I'll cover will be circling back and using the IP routing on iOS XE and XR book. That it's a Cisco Press book, and using that for IGP, BGP, multicast, and IPv6 stuff. And that is where I will be doing some more advanced BGP routing, how to use communities to do different things, and large-scale deployment, stuff like that. I do have the goal of keeping all of my topologies to 20 routers total, so that any of you out there that are trying to rebuild this stuff in say CML, that you'll be able to do that. Things like BGP will be a challenge to do because of the complexity that I'm looking at building into my design. So if I'm not able to build it under 20 routers, it's probably going to be closer to 30, 35 when it comes to the big BGP internet routing piece. Just be cognizant that you won't need to turn all the routers on for everything. And I'll try to keep myself in line where if I'm testing a particular capability, I'm keeping it limited to a subset of that topology. So, but at the end of the day, if the larger the design you have to test out BGP, the better of a feel for BGP you're going to get, because then you can actually see the actual behavior. Like if I go and I test out, say, route dampening, for example, I want to be able to test that out on both XR and XE, both as the customer and the provider edge and the provider core, so that you'll see the behavior of both, right? Because then if there's a task in the lab exam, or if you're taking service provider core and say the VPN exam, and there's talk about doing that, you'll have seen it in the workbook and you'll be like, oh, this is what Rob was talking about. And it'll give you the ability of labbing it out as well. So that's kind of where I'm going at it with that. So that is what's up with that. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and join the Discord. There will be a link in the description for that. And I am planning on, as soon as I'm done with this, I'm getting right back after it. So like I said, just to recap everything I've gone over, I'm using Nick Russo's SPB4 study guide to build the bulk of my workbook. And all of my labs are built by me. It's just I'm using his workbook, or his study guide, I should say. His study guide to help me understand how the technology works, and he's already gone through and done all the heavy lifting. So all I have to do is review his study guide and review the documentation. So as long as I can glue those two together, I'm reading the study guide task, or whatever he's doing in the study guide, taking notes on it, and then I'm rebuilding a different topology, executing on the task in a different way, so that it's not just a mirroring of what he did, it's the spirit of the task. So that's where that comes into play. And then once I'm done with that, then I'll circle back for segment routing on Andrew Ohanian's workbook, which is really, really good. If you haven't checked that out, I'll put a link in the description for that. It's free, by the way. You don't have to charge. There's no charge for that one. And then for the IP routing multicast large-scale BGP is going to be the IP routing on iOS XE and XR. And I'll put a link in the description for that Cisco Press book. It's a really, really good buy. So there's that. Now, there was a question in Discord about CCDE. And I'm going to read the question out loud and then kind of answer it in a little bit of a different way. Because there's a lot of stuff, a lot of communication going back and forth on Discord about different things. And CCDE is one of the channels in there that seems to be a hot button topic. And because it's different, right? It's not as common as like the Encore, SP Core, DC Core, so on and so forth. So the question was, I attempted the CCDE written last year. I encountered a lot of questions on project management, TCO, or total cost of ownership, cloud security governance, and reference architectures. Are there any books or other resources you would recommend for the written beyond what is listed in the learning matrix? Yes. So I don't have the learning matrix readily available to me, but if you were to download that, and actually let me go ahead and take a look at that real quick. Let me see here. Cisco Docs, certs. Is CCDE in here? It is. Let me go CCDE. We go back one level. Additional resources. And I'm going to pull up the learning matrix. Okay, so this is the learning matrix. I think I've shown you this before. But you have README first, then you have document history. This is actually pretty new. Yeah, it was just put out in the beginning of the year. So exam topics, you have a bunch of exam topics that you can go through. So never design, so on and so forth. So there's a lot in here. So one of the first things that I would want you guys to take a look at is right here, is business strategy design. So it says impact on network design, implementation, and optimization using various customer project management methods, waterfall and agile, and its solution based on business continuity and operational sustainability. Recovery point objective, there's another one called recovery target objective, ROI, CapEx, OpEx, cost analysis, and a risk reward. So it says network automation delivery model. That is one of the ways that you would look at that. So I don't think it is listed here under the CCDE official cert guide for CI/CD when it comes to continuous improvement, continuous delivery. This is another thing that you're going to want to dive into. I got questions on this as well, and so it's one of those things where, excuse me, you need to be able to. You want to look at things like your different delivery models, like how does project management work. So if you were to Google project management and try to understand what it all comes into play with that, this is going to be your place to go. Now this is, it's funny because this is talking about the different areas, but the reality of it is, this is a 100,000 foot view of the exam topics. There's a lot going into play when it comes to this. And if you click under additional resources, right, they really don't have anything in here, right? They have the CCDE practice labs, which was written by Martin Duggan, and then you have the core technology. This is more of an expanded blueprint of what you need to understand. So it's kind of funny how they've broken this out, but this is a lot of the stuff that you're going to want to understand and have a thorough understanding of. And then I'm not going to go through all of this, but then you also have large-scale networking electives, right? I chose to go through, this is large-scale networking, but they also have, so this is large-scale network electives tech. So there's a lot in here that you're going to need to know. One of the things that's not listed, that is not commonly known, is crosswork. Crosswork is a Network Services Orchestrator, or NSO. So NSO is runs on a Linux box. I've actually got it working, and it runs on a Linux box, and you deploy this this feature called NSO, and then you add these things called a NED. It's an NED, Network Element Driver, and then you add all the stuff to NSO. I'll be recording a video on how to get this working because it is kind of a pain if you've never done it before. But you go through and then you have NSO joined to the management of the network. So you configure interfaces that NSO will be able to reach. It could be part of the existing infrastructure, or it could be an out-of-band management type of thing. It's up to you and how you want to lab it. But either way, you're going to have a capability put in place where you're going to be able to automate the way that you deploy the services of your environment. So the documentation so far has been a little clunky to get through. So for example, there's a need in the exam where, based off the practice labs that I've gone through, where you're going to have to add a provider edge router to an existing service that service provider offers to a customer with a new site. Well, adding that service to that site goes beyond my understanding of how NSO works. So I've got some reading I have to go do, but the idea would be for you to be able to get it to the point where you can go in and type in, for example, like service is going to be L3 VPN, and you're going to be adding XYZ device to that L3 VPN service. And then you push the config, and then voila, that device magically comes online. I haven't gotten there yet. But the NSO Cisco Live tutorial that I did when I was in San Diego, they show you how to do it. But they showed you how to execute on something that's already built. So I don't know how to get the service actually built to be able to do that. So that's something that I have to go work on. That's one area that I don't know as well, and I need to spend some time in. I just haven't taken the reps to do it. It's just a matter of doing it. So that's basically how this comes into play. And so they have other electives. I don't know if they added AI in here as well. So there's a lot in here for the different capabilities. So if the learning matrix is where I would start. That's your starting point, and then it's up to you to get creative with your Google searches and what you're diving into. Maybe diving into project management, the PMP, project management professional cert, to see what all it covers and see if there's agile versus waterfall versus what's the other one that's out there that the name is escaping me at the moment. Anyway, I want to use the term sprints. Maybe that's agile. I don't remember. But there's a bunch of different project management processes that you're going to want to be familiar with, because that is part of it, right? It's, even though you're not going to be a project manager as a CCDE, you're going to have to understand how project management is done, because that's something I deal with day in and day out. Number one thing a customer has, once they understand the technical, they understand the budgetary, they understand the end state, is how do we get there, right? How is the sausage actually made, and what do we actually have to do to execute to get to where we need to be? And that in and of itself is not a technical question, right? There's technicalities to it, but it's not like, how do I enable OSPF between these two routers? It's not technical in that way. It's project management, and those people get involved, and you have to be able to articulate the details. So what I think might be a good series for me to do at some point in the future, I don't exactly know when I would dig into it, would be to talk about this type of stuff. Because I have to, right? I have to be able to articulate how you would dive into this. And there's 10 different ways to accomplish project management, right? There's, depending on which project management style you like and how quickly the customer is trying to move, what the project manager's job is to do, what their scope of work is, what they understand, the teams that they have to interact with. It's basically, I do not want to say it's like a glorified secretary, but you are basically juggling a bunch of different teams, and you're trying to keep the coordination between all of those teams on the same page. I would never ever want to be a project manager because of the fact of the amount of juggling. I don't have the patience to deal with stuff that I can't control, right? I'm an engineer by design. I enjoy doing that type of stuff. I'm very much a zeros and ones, black and white kind of guy. And whenever a conversation goes outside of, yes, you can do that, no, you can't do that, what does the business support type questions? Like, I don't know. I don't run the business. I'm an architect that helps the customers to figure out where they're going in a business strategy vision. I help them translate that into technical requirements. And then I can take that back to the teams that I work with and say, hey guys, this customer wants to do X, Y, Z. And this is the direction we talked about. What can we do to make that a reality? That's kind of the conversation that I have with those customers. But I also have a deep technical understanding of how a lot of that type of stuff works across routing and switching, security, service provider, data center, cloud, some voice, some wireless. But the majority of it is I'm well versed in. So that's why I took a crack at the DE, just to see, hey, what the heck? Maybe it'll work out. So with that being said, like I mentioned, I will put a link to all the stuff in the description. I will try to remember to put a link to the learning matrix in there as well, and then all of the OCGs and the books that I recommend. Throw that out there as well. So, excuse me, all of a sudden I get burpy. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, please leave me a comment down below, and I will catch all of you fine folks in the next one.